Wow, Josh is rapid today, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 78. I'm joined by a Kentuckian who made the trip here. I just want to say thank you for coming up.
Thanks, Shay. Appreciate you.
Thanks. It's been looking forward to this. So,
it's an honor.
My episode tonight is a former Army Sergeant Brent Casey. So tonight's guest is someone whose life has been defined by service to his country, to his fellow veterans, and to Gold Star families across the nation. Brent Casey joined the U.S. Army at just 19 years old and later served as a combat medic with the 2nd Airborne Division during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. But beyond the battlefield, Brent has continued to serve in a powerful and deeply meaningful way. Brent is the co-owner of Valor Coins and Pens, a business he runs with his brother that honors military service through custom coins and lapel pens. He also serves as a VA Research Advisory Committee for Gulf War illness, where he advocates for treatments to improve the lives of fellow Gulf War veterans. Brent's deep commitment to honor and sacrifice led him to co-found the Woody Williams Foundation alongside his grandfather, Woody Williams, which we'll talk about later.
Sure.
The last surviving World War II Medal of Honor recipient at the time. Together, they traveled the country building Gold Star family memorials, ensuring no family sacrifice is forgotten. Brent was also inducted in the 2023 Kentucky Veterans Hall of Fame and is a proud member of the VFW, American Legion, and DAV. Brent's personal battle with PTSD and his continued service to help others cope and thrive make his story one of strength, purpose, and profound resilience. I am honored to welcome former Sergeant Brent Casey. Welcome.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that. It's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Really
and we'll start off with a quote here from Adam Fenner. It says, "An infantryman's job is to deliver his enemies into the waiting hands of the death. It is a doc's job to protect his brothers from death, to knock him aside and say, not today." So we'll talk about that more. So we got a lot to talk about, I think. So I guess we'll start off with young Brent. He's down there in West Virginia, right?
Started in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
born in Germany, actually.
Okay. We're in Germany.
Born in Wiesbaden.
Okay.
So my father was in the Air Force, and I was probably only there a year. Don't remember any of that, obviously. I've been back with my mother and my brother about 5 years ago. We took a trip back to see the hospital I was born in, and that. But yeah, West Virginia's my roots. West Virginia's home. I'll always be a mountaineer at heart.
I should have prepped for some more West Virginia jokes.
But you can sing Country Roads.
Country, yeah. No, I'm not going to sing. That's the last thing we need to hear. But so grew up just one brother?
Two brothers.
Two brothers, okay.
Yeah, two brothers, both younger. Brian and Sam, both Ohioans. Actually, they're both not too far from here in Coolville, Ohio. I wasn't cool enough.
I don't even know where Coolville's at.
Athens.
Okay.
Close to Athens. Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I've lived here 11 years. I think I just know the major cities. Anything that I got to drive through.
Yeah.
To go to the major cities other than that.
Yeah, they migrated to Ohio. My brother's he's got several businesses over in that area. And my other brother's more of a farm type, just loving life, both of them.
So what was it like growing up? What was young growing up to?
I was a pretty active kid, really. I liked staying active. I was part of the volunteer fire department. I joined as a junior on a bicycle. At that time, you could ride your bicycle to the fire department, jump on a fire truck, and nobody said anything about it. Had a paper route growing up. I was telling my buddy Jay on the way up here that I had a moped scooter, and that's how I delivered my newspapers. Got a job, my first job, pretty young. Matter of fact, I still had the moped. I didn't have a driver's license. First job at Dairy Queen when the blizzard came out. Never forget it. But yeah, I was pretty active as a kid. I wasn't the best kid. I
always love hearing these stories where you start off and then so.
I got a lot of trouble as a kid. More trouble than either of my brothers did. Much more trouble than any of my kids, thank God.
So what kind of trouble though? I mean, we're talking like major trouble or just like little?
Yeah, writing my initials in fresh concrete, that sort of stuff, just dumb stuff, dumb kid stuff. But yeah, I had a good growing up though. I had a good childhood.
So both parents stayed together then, or?
No, I was probably 6, I guess, when my parents divorced. Of great stepdad though. He brought us up well. Had a great childhood with him, and mom and dad still got along. Actually, dad moved to Louisville in 1974, so I became really acquainted with Louisville and loved it. So when I got out of the military in 91, I ended up in Louisville rather than going back to West Virginia. I just felt like there was a lot more to offer in Louisville than there was Huntington, West Virginia.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's there was a little Netflix episode like heroin overdose capital of the world or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty small city, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
But so I'm glad I made that decision, because with my my habits and my mentality, that might not have been the best thing for me, especially coming out of the military with what I didn't even know was, PTSD.
Yeah. So let's go back. Like, I mean, we're obviously going to talk about your grandfather. That's probably a big part of it. So I've always asked people, like, was anybody else in your family in the military? You're the first one we've had who's had a family member who was a Medal of Honor recipient. So how early did you know that your grandfather, Herschel, but goes by Woody, that he was actually a Medal of Honor recipient for a pretty significant battle that happened, the Battle of Iwo Jima? So right. when would you become aware of that growing up? I was in my teens. As a matter of fact, when I wasn't so good of a kid, as I was mentioning earlier, rather than, my mother said, you got a choice. You can either go to Pruny Town, which is a boys corrective facility in West Virginia, or you can go to your grandfather's. And so I love my grandfather. I love my grandmother especially, and I knew she'd have my back always, and she did. So I ended up on his horse farm a few times for a few extended periods of time, just learning some good life lessons and how you're supposed to, how you're supposed to roll as a teenager. So he taught me a lot growing up, but it was in my teenage years, but I didn't really get it. I mean, I knew it was called the Medal of Honor. I'm not sure I even knew it was the highest award you could be awarded. I knew it was a big deal because he was a commandant of the local veterans home, in my town. He was in parades all the time. I mean, I knew it was a big deal, but it wasn't until I got into the military that I really could wrap my head around it. It all started to click, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is kind of a big deal. Yeah. Bigger deal than I thought it was. So much. Yeah. So as a kid, you say as part of all those organizations, did people treat him differently? Like in the town, I mean, it's a pretty small town. Or was it, did he keep it pretty hidden, or did kind of everybody know? He kept it hidden up to a certain point because he was working. I mean, he was just busy. He was like everybody else. Yeah. He worked for the VA as a veterans counselor, veterans representative for 35 years. He had a horse farm. So when he came home from work, before he went to work, he had 2 or 3 hours of work already in a horse farm. And then he'd come home and work. So, and then on the weekends, he was a really good horse trainer. He was a horse whisperer. I mean, he really was. He was phenomenal with horses. So he trained horses for other people to show in Columbus. I came here many times to the Ohio State Fair in the back of a horse van with him driving. And that was my job when we got here, was to get the horses clean. And he would show too, but he was really good with horses, but he was just an average, around town. Yeah. Huntington is probably 50,000, but the town he was from was maybe 1,000. And then Barbersville, where I grew up, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. So there weren't a lot of people. Nobody really treated him any different. Yeah. But it wasn't like he wore his medal, to the mall or to the IHOP for breakfast or what have you. You would never know he had the Medal of Honor if you didn't know who he was or see it on his license plate or something like that. We'll talk more about him. We'll just keep going to you, but I thought that was interesting because whenever I asked that question, I think you probably have the most unique lineage of anyone that's been on. So he and we left out that he was a Marine. So that's always That's kind of important. So you,
Sure.
you get through high school, you did a year of college,
Mhm.
you said, and then you decided, to change it up a little bit.
I wasn't the best college student starting out. Just my mentality wasn't there. I was still a kid. I just, I needed some more discipline and direction, and just decided I knew I wanted to be in the medical field, and I had seen a poster somewhere, somebody jumping out of an airplane in fatigues. So I knew I wanted to be airborne, and I wanted to be a medic. And so I went to the Marine recruiter first, just out of respect for my grandfather. And I visited the Navy recruiter, and ultimately the Army was the best fit.
Yeah.
As a medic. They guaranteed me both of those things, and that's what I wanted. So yeah, I joined after trying college for a year.
So the conversation of, are you going to join the military? Did you have that conversation with the parents and your grandfather? Did you ever talk
Not
about
that
it?
I recall.
Yeah.
No, I think myself and my best friend, there's actually two other best friends, we're all kind of in the same boat, and we all went at the same time, and we all joined the same day. So I had some really good conversations with a couple buddies, but I don't remember talking to mom and dad about it or Woody. It was done. I signed the papers. I'm headed out.
Yeah, 19, you were able to kind of just do your thing and move on. So, So you go to good old Fort Bliss for basic, and then head to the basic airborne course at Benning,
right,
and then Fort Sam Houston,
right,
where all the medics go,
right.
And I didn't think I'd get a chance to make funny, but you did. First unit was the first cav. I like to always give my dad's the first cav veteran.
Okay.
So I like to always give him a hard time.
I hated the first cav.
I
hated the first cav. I mean, I think only because I had the mindset of I've got these wings on my chest for a reason. Why am I going to support some guys in tanks as opposed to jumping out of airplanes? So, but ultimately I got what I wanted and ended up in the 82nd Airborne. Yeah.
So going to the first cabin, you're there, what, 88 to 90 or so?
80. Yep. Right. Yeah. 90.
So the different times I remember I went to Fort Hood. That was my first seat assignment. So I was actually 2nd Army Division.
Okay. Yeah. The other
then
side.
we reflagged to the 4ID and then stayed out the first cab, which used to be a big joke with me and my dad about that. But but the first cab was always big to me because my dad's, growing up, my dad, had the first cab combat patch. So you see that gigantic patch.
Sure.
If you guys, if someone we're talking about, like the biggest patch, you know what they say about, big patches, right? But it's always funny because I was the same way. I was always drawn to, like you, figuring out how to get to the 82nd to one of the airborne units. So it's, but I it was a part of me wanted to be in the cab, but then also at the time too, like when I was there, I feel like the cab guys were a little over the top. My wife I used to complain about them, how that egos and all that kind of stuff. My wife would be like, "What are you talking about? Like, you're in the 82nd." I'm like, "Yeah, but we have a reason to be cocky and talk shit, but not, but it's a great unit, great heritage." And
it was. And the big patch, there's something about that big yellow patch.
Yeah, it's a pretty, I think all joking aside, the actual Class A patch, the color patch is pretty slick.
I would agree.
It's a pretty,
I was proud.
I'm
proud of served in it. No doubt.
So you finally get your wish and you head to the promised land, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And for a lot of people that aren't listening, they wouldn't know, but there used to be an armor battalion there. Third to the 7th, 3rd Armor Battalion, the Sheridans. So a lot of people would be like, "No way, they were Sheridan tanks." But they used to have them there. So what was it like being assigned to? Because they're kind of oddballs at the time in the 90 when you went there. They're not your normal light infantry unit,
right? And I didn't know much different because I was already with M1s and Bradleys, and so I'd already been serving in a tank group. And then getting there, these were much older tanks, but still very very mobile, very 172 millimeter Shillelagh missile, very powerful tank. And we had we didn't they weren't breaking down all the time, or, they were they were still pretty good tanks at that time. Actually, John Troxel, who later became the Joint Chief of Staff he was the chief of the Joint Chiefs, Troxel. He was a staff sergeant and I was his medic, and then to watch him go on all the way to the top was pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, it was good duty.
So what drew you to, we go back a little bit, what made you want to go to the 82nd? What was your fascination? I know you saw a poster, but what
I would have been just as pleased or just as happy going to the 101st. It didn't really make any, I mean, I can say that now, but at the time, and being honest, I wouldn't have known any different. I didn't have one preference over the other. I just wanted to go to an airborne group, so yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
I think for me, it was like when I look back at it, it's like why I was so drawn to it was just there's so much history. Like it was just, D-Day and talk about that and those stories you hear. It seemed like, there was so many great, the old war, the longest day, all these other kind of things. It just seemed like, inevitably, like, I just watched Band of Brothers with my youngest son again, just so much like story about the airborne, which, if that's what you're looking for, that's what you find. I'm sure like now knowing what I know about the military, there's, plenty of history everywhere else, but it just seemed like that's what was my drawing to it. And just being able to, be a unit that, everybody volunteers to, do something even crazier and jumping out. I mean, if you never jumped out of an airplane, like a mass tack, I always tell people like it's one of the coolest things in the entire world to see. There's nothing better to see that and feel that. And you're like, this is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
It makes up for all the other bullshit. But it's
all the time I spent in the first cab in the field.
Yeah. All the other stuff
was awful. Oh gosh.
All the bullshit you deal with at the 82nd, it's still fun though. So you get assigned there. What was your first jump in division like? Do you remember?
I didn't do a jump. I didn't do any. Once I got to the 82nd, it was maybe 2 months. We deployed to Desert Shield. So there wasn't time to do jumps from the time I got there to the time we deployed. I didn't do any jumps. The only jumps I had were the 5 jumps in school. Yeah, and of course we didn't jump in the desert. No, So yeah, it's kind of a little disappointing, but it is what it is,
So not our first Desert Shield veterans been on, but I think it's one of those things that people have forgotten about since we've been at war. We were at war for 22 years, but so that kicks off 1990, 91. Like, what's that like? You're a little bit older, probably 21 or so at the time. You're in a rapid deploy unit, like all of a sudden, like our first war since Vietnam, what's going through your mind and the fellow paratroopers that you remember?
Shit's getting real. Shit's getting real. I remember being scared to death. But on the other hand, knowing that's what I signed up for, I was a little bit, I guess maybe bitter might not be the right word, but I'll use bitter. I only had a 3-year re-enlistment. And so I should have gotten out in September of 90. And instead I got extended because involuntarily extended as a medic. So I wasn't really supposed to go. I should have gone to Bragg and then gotten out, but that's not the way it happened. But I remember being scared to death. But on the other hand, knowing if I'm going to go, I'm going with one of the most elite, most well-trained, best units you can go to combat with. So, that's all I'll say about that, I guess. I was scared shitless.
So what was the vibe of everybody else, the guys that have been there for a while? And
serious, very, very serious. Some of the guys that I went with were probably, probably some Vietnam guys in that group or shortly after. But we spent a lot of time sitting and waiting from October time frame until really January, 1st of February. Things really got hot, not for very long. But we had such an advantage over them. We had about 1,000 tanks. They had about 1,000 tanks. But the deal breaker was we had GPS and we had night vision, and they didn't have either one. And we knew that even as a young medic, in the combat, in the thick of things, I knew we had that advantage. I didn't know really maybe what that meant or how big a deal that was, but that was a big deal. That's why that war was so short and to the point, and knock their dicks in the dirt and we're done. We're out of here. But we served a purpose. We served a really good purpose being there.
Yeah, I think Desert Shield is one of those things like, at the time, if, I came in 94 and I thought about dropping out of college and, going to war. That's what, I felt like was my responsibility or whatever. But my dad talked me out of that, but in a very brutal conversation, but that's for another time. But that what I think a lot of people forget, like you said before, was such a war that happened that was over so quickly. Like technologically, it was like there's a lot of kinetic things going on, like that just bombings that we'd never seen, like precision bombing, like these attacks were just happening that we'd never that nobody had seen like ever in warfare, really, right? And then you saw this like build up, one of the largest build up of an army that was ever assembled, right? And it was like for a lot of people afterwards, it kind of seemed, when I came in '94, it was like you kind of looked at Desert Shield, and you're like, oh, you guys really didn't do anything, if you weren't the Air Force, or whatever. So, but what we're forgetting is there was a ton of carnage that went on, from these precision bombing, all these non-precision, but just the full assault of the U.S. military, and then
Right.
us, the military going in, and then you guys occupying or falling up behind some pretty significant things that happened. And it's funny, until recently, I still for a long time was like, yeah, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, yeah, because a lot of it, you talk to them, all my NCOs were like, yeah, we just went over there and we hung out for 5 months, and nothing really happened. So you kind of, I don't want to say look down on it, but it was kind of like it's gotten to a point where I think it got overlooked how serious some things were going on. There were some serious engagements that happened over there, but I think talking to people, and I think you can elaborate on obviously more, but the carnage that you saw going in after, that's something that that a lot of people just forget what had happened. So what was that like, the coalition campaign going in there and just paving the way, and then conventional forces coming up?
Yeah, if you weren't part of a tank unit, or you weren't part of the Air Force and the A-10s, who really did all of the fighting. I mean, all of the fighting was either tank fighting or non-fighting, just obliteration by A-10 aircraft and others. But the A-10s were certainly, I think, most instrumental in that war. You don't know. You just don't know, if you weren't part of one of those groups, because a lot of the others were in the back. But once we got to the highway of death, and that's, it was obvious the A-10s had been through there, and our Air Force had been through there heavily. I mean, the vehicles were still on fire. The people behind the wheels were still behind the wheel, gripping the wheel. Some of that stuff you never get out of your head, but that smell, you just it never goes away.
So I can't, for the people that what was the total distance on? I can't remember how it was, but it was like over, was it
60 miles?
Yeah.
60 miles. So I use the analogy being in Louisville, from Louisville to Lexington, or Louisville almost to Cincinnati. That was the length of that highway. It was just it was bumper to bumper vehicles. Some of them had gotten off of the road, already on fire. Some of the vehicles, but they didn't make it very far off the road. But another thing a lot of people don't know about as far as the Gulf War and those of us that are suffering and have suffered from the Gulf War illness. And the demolition pit that was in Camisaya or Camisaya, depending on how you want to pronounce it, we destroyed a demolition pit there. It wasn't the smartest thing our military ever did because there were thousands of us downstream, that caught those toxins. So between the anthrax shots and the cyclosarin gas and the sarin gas and the depleted uranium, the DEET, I mean, you put all that cocktail together with anxiety, with everybody, each individual person's body makeup. That's why they can't figure out what it is. It's everybody's different, and everybody got a little bit different taste of the cocktail. I've got friends that have had brain cancer at 50. I mean, Gulf War veterans are twice as likely to die from brain cancer, Parkinson's, MS, ALS. All of those we're much more prone to because of those exposures. And I think that's the most important thing that's been forgotten.
But I think I'm glad to see that you guys, they have at least, admitted to like Gulf War syndrome. And they're fighting that. Recently, if you haven't followed like the burn pit thing, they kind of got denied again, which is the same thing. The Army, the military doesn't learn. Let's just create more burn pits and burn stuff. And then, my generation, the GWAT guys, we got a different cocktail that we got. Now it's like, all these jammers that people, had sitting right next to them in vehicles and all this kind of stuff. So it's always been, but I'm glad to see that they have acknowledged that, that they cause a lot of problems to a lot of people. But let's go back to because you do talk a lot about that experience of, of putting eyes on, the highway of death and what you saw there. And you've been pretty open that never left you. Like, what was that, going back there, like, what was that? What was that like? Was it like, were you registering it? Were you just like, what was happening to you at that time? If you can remember.
You had to, you had to, I mean, it's there in front of you. You have to register it. I've always been sort of ashamed that myself and the group of the guys that I was with, we took all kinds of photos, and I brought those photos home. I never could figure. I mean, I must have been completely out of my mind to do that. I mean, who does that? But I think I think that's just part of war. Your mind is your mind, and your mind has to adjust to what is in front of you and what you're seeing. And it just does. Now, what it does to you afterwards is a whole nother story, as we know. But
at those times, like you're not the only person that's ever done that, I'm sure. But I mean, it's just you're in a different mindset, and it's just, I mean, it's you're operating your best thinking at the time, and I mean, like, it wasn't. I don't think there's anything that you can really kind of explain. It's just it's just a hard thing to understand, and I'm sure you're not the first person to do that, or the last person. But so when do you think it hit you though? When you talk about that, that's probably the first. Like, when did you realize, holy shit, what I saw, what I did? When did that start having an effect on you?
I don't think it was until see when I came home. I didn't go to the VA for 14 years. I buried all of it in a lot of ways that I shouldn't have. I had no healthy coping skills. Every coping skill that I had was disastrous and ended up being a disaster. So I don't think it was really until I got into the VA and got into a PTSD residential rehabilitation program with another group of guys in Lexington, Kentucky, that it really hit me. what that it all just sort of all came flooding back. I think I had drowned it so heavily before then. I just
What were you drowning in?
alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Both alcohol and drugs. Yeah. Mostly drugs. I mean, drugs was my downfall. It was the cocaine, and never any worse than cocaine, but that was bad enough. That took me to the bottom. Really did.
So do you have that as, like, when you look back, was it Desert Storm, Desert Shield? Was it that experience that, kind of was the tipping of the scales, or was there something else going on? You come back, like you said, you're out of the military, which, is, you didn't have really time to out process with what had happened, right? You're coming back. Everybody's, the one thing I do remember about that, everybody was glad to have you guys back. Like, some of the biggest parade you've ever seen ever. And then all of a sudden you're back. Like you said, you're down in Louisville, you're gone, you're no longer in the military. You're not talking to anybody. You've lost your job. You lost your identity. You lost your purpose. For some people, like, what do you think was the tipping scale for it? Was it a combination of leaving the military and what you saw over there? Or, I mean, have you ever?
Well, I think there's two different time frames. The time frame when I came home, I was married, and from the time I came home, I didn't remember how long it had been until my wife, who's now my wife again, we came full circle. I tried it 2 or 3 more times, didn't work out, so I ended up having another chance with my first wife. But when I came home, I left, months after I got home. We had just moved into a new apartment. I don't even know how long we were there, 2 or 3 months, 6 months, something like that. And I just came home one night and said, I'm leaving. And I don't even remember doing it. I don't know why I did it. Had no reason. But from that point on, I went bender for 14 years, basically. And then when I got to by the time that 14 years was up, the tip of the iceberg, or straw that broke the camel's back, was I had lost my car, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my house, I lost my family. I had nothing left. But I'd never been to the VA. So it was time. My grandfather and my brother and my whole family was instrumental in getting me back on track. They came to Louisville, took me back to Huntington, West Virginia, where I grew up, where my grandfather was, Woody, and my mom and dad, my brother, and got me into the VA the first time. And I remember going in, talking to, I didn't know it was a psychologist at the time, but I just remember him coming back in the room after me filling out some papers. And he said, you flagged 19 out of 19 on your PTSD questionnaire. We'll start there. I said, PTSD? I didn't even know what PTSD was. I never even heard the term. I didn't know what it stood for. And so he could tell I was like, what the hell? And I said, don't worry about it. You're in the right place. We've got the tools. We've got the resources. We're going to get you headed back the right direction. And I didn't have any choice. I had nothing left except my mom and dad had taken me back in to their home. And my grandfather was starting to mentor me. And
So how old are you at this time?
37, 38. Yeah. 37. So it's 37, because I just celebrated 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years on my birthday, June 1st. Celebrated 20 years of just being out of the madness, escaping the madness. But that was when I started headed back the right direction. So between the VA, I've always credited the VA for saving my life. They had I not gone to that 6-week PTSD program and recognized that there were 15 others around me that were going through the same battle, fighting the same battle, and a counselor there who was, I got chills. a counselor there who helped me a lot, got me over the hump. But I got out of that program and went to the War-Related Illness Injury Study Center. It's called the RISC. There's one in East Orange, New Jersey. That's the one I attended. Went up there for about 3 days. There's one in DC and there's one in Palo Alto, California. So I went up there and I remember sitting in a boardroom with 4 or 5 doctors on this side and 4 or 5 doctors on this side after all of my evaluation. And they diagnosed me with PTSD first and fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and irritable bowel syndrome. And said, don't worry about it. The VA's got you. We're going to get you headed back the right direction and everything's going to be okay. And started getting some voc rehab, went back to school, got my bachelor's degree. And between the VA and my family, just and God, I give God all the credit. Because God guided them. God knew what I needed, and God guided them to steer me in the right direction.
So what was the conversation from Woody like?
Woody had PTSD too, and I didn't know that. That was one of the first things he shared. I remember being at the first place we went. I think we were on our way to Charleston or somewhere where he was speaking, Charleston, West Virginia. And we stopped in Hurricane, West Virginia at a truck stop. I could probably walk in there today. It's 20 years ago. I could walk in there today and point out the table. But he said, I was diagnosed with PTSD just 10 years ago. And I fought the same battles and just so gentle, just so, gonna get me choked up again. He just knew, he knew he had already been there and done that and knew what to say and he knew how to say it. And I wasn't the first one. I wasn't the only one. I've met and talked to a lot of people, just random people that have called me over the years. Hey, I'll never forget this conversation I had in this hotel lobby in Dallas, Texas with your grandfather. My life's never been the same since. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't the only one. He was just so good at that type of thing. And he just took me, he took me under his wing and we were best friends. Yeah. We were best friends. He was my best friend.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful thing to have, that conversation with him and understand. I think for, the warrior class and the veteran class, I think we all love to, we were doing before making jokes about units you're in and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is when we can sit and talk to each other, we're all suffering from the same thing. We have those same feelings. Like he's probably feeling the same way you felt that I felt, that, that we all felt. It's just being able to open up and have that conversation with somebody and genuine is powerful. And like you said before, it's a credit to your grandfather and, the men that came back for me too, as well. This isn't a forceful conversation. It's a very calming, real conversation that doesn't, it's hard to explain if you haven't had it, but I mean, that's the thing is, I always tell veterans out there, every time I talk to them is like, we're going through the same thing. You just have to trust yourself to be open, and you have to, to the right people. But, if you talk to the right people, they're going to share with you exactly how they're feeling. I mean, there's no way that your grandfather wasn't suffering. No. Anybody that was on Iwo Jima, is suffering, but it's just, it brought me to a question. I think we'll ask it this that I was going to ask, because you did spend a lot of time with him. And we I guess you could probably tell his citation better, but awarded Medal of Honor for going after Japanese pits, positions ahead of a force, small arms, hand grenades, flamethrowers, all this kind of stuff. A pretty significant, experience. when talking to him all these years, and you guys being involved in meeting other Medal of Honor winners, which we'll talk about, him not sharing it, like, did you, like, looking back now, do you see that he was suffering from PTSD? What was different about how he was coping with it? Or, like, I don't want to say denying it, but yeah, I mean, denying it, or like whatever, like looking back, what do you think was so different between, the extreme amount of, like, if in general, for the people that don't know, for you to receive the Medal of Honor, you've probably seen some of the worst combat that you can see. So to survive, you have that, all those things you talk about, survivor complex, all these other things, what do you think made him able to be so resilient, I guess, or I guess resilient is the better word for it?
Well, come to find out, and I didn't know for a long time, he did the same thing I did. From 1945 to 1962, he was fight, which is ironic because it's about the same number of years I did. But until Easter in 1962, he was fighting it the same way I was, with unhealthy coping skills, not necessarily the right way. But Easter 1962, his daughters, my mother and my aunt, finally talked him into going to church on Easter Sunday. And he said they were all dressed up in new outfits, and they were all white shoes, white dresses, white little hair pieces. And he said, I just couldn't say no. So he went to church, and he sat at the end of the pew, because he in the back on the end. So he knew he could get out if he wanted to. But make a long story short, he walked out of there a different man. He never took another drink. He was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes. He never smoked another cigarette. He just became a different man. I mean, God got a hold of him, by the collar, and you're going to live a different life. And he did for the rest of his life. He never changed. He just stayed on that path. So, I didn't know, I never knew he was fighting PTSD, because he had God from 1962 through, I wasn't born till 68. So my whole life, he and my grandmother came and picked us up for church every Sunday. So I never knew that he fought those battles. And he always said from that day forward, those nightmares, the night terrors, the swinging fists in the middle of the night, and kicking the walls, it went away. Which is hard to believe after being on Iwo Jima for that length of period, taking out 7 Japanese pillboxes with flamethrowers, lost 2 of the 4 Marines. He had a lot of, I think more than anything, worse than the PTSD was the survivor's guilt from losing those 2 Marines that were governing. He really, I know he suffered from that. He talked about it all the time.
I listened to probably like 7 videos of Woody last night and the day before, and he never does not mention the 2 guys that that lost their life during that whole operation. And but I mean, so what was it like when he actually shared that with you? Like, hey, the same thing happened to me. Because I know the first time I talked to somebody, and first time I was open about what I was suffering with, and somebody else to tell me how they felt, like it fucking changed me. Like, I was like, holy cow, when I could look another man's eyes and I could cry, and they could cry with me, and there was no judgment, there was no shame, there was none of this kind of stuff. It fucking healed me.
Yeah. The cinder blocks just dumped off my shoulders. I know that for sure. I remember, feeling that. And he didn't judge. It didn't matter, what I had done. He was not a judgmental person, and that's part of the Christian in him. He wasn't a judgmental person. But that certainly helped me along, knowing he'd fought the same battles and been down the same sidewalk I had.
Yeah, I think it's, when we talk about this now, if anyone's listening, I think it's a good opportunity here, just real quick to talk about it. If you know someone who is considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can chat at veterancrisisline.net/chat. But yeah, like I think that's, what an amazing man to be able to have that conversation with. I mean, I've had, like, not to put him on a pedestal or anything any different, but I just look back, like I said before, like when I first was able to talk to a safe man and other safe men and see that I wasn't alone, that they were scared just like me, and all the problems I was having, it was just like, holy shit, like it's what I needed to hear a long time ago. So that's what I said before. If you're struggling with this, if the Veterans Crisis Hotline doesn't work for you, talk to, you give me a call, DM me. I mean, just talk to somebody. People want to know.
Sure.
And you're not alone. It's a huge thing. So I'm really glad that changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Not everybody is so fortunate. I know God puts people in people's paths for a reason, but I don't know why I was so fortunate to have him. Just blessed. Yeah, blessed.
So we'll talk about. I mean, I guess you want to talk about the foundation then now. Sure, next, yeah. You think so? When did you?
So we had been on a trip. We went on lots and lots of trips. We had millions and millions of miles and shared lots of hotel rooms over a 17, 18 year period. Before
we talk about the foundation, so let's talk about Medal of Honors. I think people don't like recipients. So I think what you was telling me, there's a stipend they get to go in there. I don't want to say, but they are part of the public relations for they're asked to speak at places. They go give speeches everywhere. They go to places, and that's something that's part that they actually they get money for that, correct?
It's all volunteer.
Okay.
It's all volunteer.
You don't have to do it, but you can if you do, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, they get a $1,500 stipend. I think Congress is getting ready to change that. Okay. I think they're getting ready to really up that, because these guys have been doing this for years out of their own pocket. They used to have to pay to go to their own conventions. Now there are cities that put on conventions for them. Upcoming in September will be Chattanooga, Tennessee. That'll be this year's national convention. I think there are 59 living, 60 maybe.
I looked today. I think it's 61.
61. Okay.
Because I think the newest one was the one I just met was Kenneth David. I think he made it 61.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I don't think any have passed since Mr. David. But
talk about those numbers. No World War II. The only living Medal of Honor recipients are from the Vietnam War and the global war on terrorism. So there's no.
That's right.
No more from the Korean War, and then your grandfather Woody was the last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient, I think.
Yeah, there were about 460 awarded for World War II, all during World War II. About 460 Medal of Honors. Only about half of those lived, and then he outlived all of them. He passed away at 98 about 3 years ago. It's a very rare breed. But pretty much everything they do is on their own, out of their own pocket. I know there are companies like, GE or UPS or whatever that will offer them. And I know I took stipends from companies for Woody to speak. And I did that as the CEO of the Woody Williams Foundation. I would bargain those. Hey, if you want him to come and speak on Veterans Day, there's going to be 6 other people. It's going to be at least $10,000, and because we've got a nonprofit, the Woody Williams Foundation, and we're trying to help Gold Star families. And we're going to take the highest bidder. I mean, it's a nonprofit. That's what we do. So, but yeah, he and I were on an airplane, and
but those speeches that you're going around that they're talking about, like I don't know if anyone's. I'm sure people that listen have heard it, but if you haven't, they're. It's a big deal. Like I was in Afghanistan when Alfred Rascon came and told his story. And I think today I did the count. It's actually, what is it? 6? 1, 2, 5. So Alfred Rascon, Kenneth David, Ty Carter, Clint Romachet, and Leeward Patriot, I think, are the five that I've met. Listen to, you know, Alfred Rascon speak, and then also Kenneth David, and then also Ty Carter. And like you're in all of these. If you see them, you know, especially you're in the military, you know, at the time. I wasn't with the latest one, but it's hard to explain. Like, you know, if you have any type of military affiliation, when you see a Medal of Honor recipient, it's a big deal. The thing I've always laughed about, I think I told you when we first talked, is I feel like whenever they talk, when they explain what they did, it's always like they never really fully get into the whole deal of it. And then you read, because I remember specifically with Major Rascon at the time, he was talking about telling what happened, and someone was like, and we pulled up a citation, and we're like, you know, I think some guy leaned in like, someone needs to tell him how to tell that story a little bit better. But I make fun of that, but the other part about it is the story isn't really about that. Most of their speeches is really, it's the other part of it. It's super important. Like, you can read their citation and figure out what's going on, watch a video about them, because it's all out there. But like, I've always been humbled by the speeches they talk about, because it's really never about them.
That's right. That's what I was going to say.
And that's why I say it's a bad, like it looks like it's a bad story, but it's really not. It's because they're not telling their story. They're telling the story of the men that, you know, weren't recipients, or unfortunately gave their life.
That's right.
So if you ever have a chance to see any of the 61 that are alive,
absolutely
go see them.
Absolutely.
It'll change your life.
Yeah. Most people have never met them. Even people that served in the military, active or veterans otherwise, have never met a Medal of Honor recipient. It's a pretty rare, unique opportunity. And I would echo what you said. If you get an opportunity, go hear them speak, go shake their hand. It's not about them, and you'll figure that out right away. None of them. It's not about them. It's about those that didn't come home. You've met some pretty. I've been spoiled. I guess I've been spoiled. So I've grown up all my life. I remember meeting Pappy Boyington.
Oh wow!
so I've met most every recipient since World War II, just because of being with my grandfather, conventions, and I served as the staff photographer for the Congressional Medal of Honor Society for 3 or 4 years. So I certainly had an opportunity to meet, you know, all of them and their families and spend time with them. Good buddies. Several of them are good buddies. So I've been spoiled, you know, but I would echo what you said. Yeah. If you get an opportunity, go hear these guys' stories.
Yeah, it's powerful. And and we've talked about some of it. We don't need to, I mean, we can, you know, there's some of them that are still alive that are, you know, still resistant to share the message, I think, a little bit, or hesitant. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. And I understand it, but you know, they have they mean so much to so many people. Like I said, you know, to see them. Like I thought about that today. Like I talked to you on the phone, when we talked on the phone at one time, I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, holy cow, it is pretty amazing to be able to meet these men, shake their hand, you know, hear them speak. It means more to me than like probably meeting, you know, I'm a huge Yankees fan, to meet like, you know, Don Mattingly or somebody like that. It's like, oh shit, you know, this is like way more. But yeah, you could pass these guys on the street and probably never even know that what they've been through, and what an honor it is to meet them. You know what I mean? So
they're the real heroes. Yeah.
So you're traveling around seeing all that stuff, and sorry to digress a little bit before the foundation.
So we were on a flight somewhere, coming home or going, and we were coming home because he had 3 checks. He had spoken. We were coming home from 3 different states. He had 2 checks from speaking to groups in 2 states, and he had a love offering from speaking in a church. He spoke in a lot of churches around the country. Such a phenomenal speaker. He learned from Dale Carnegie and the Dale Carnegie folks. He taught Dale Carnegie. He was just a phenomenal speaker. But he had those checks in his pocket. I said, Papaw, why don't we do? I was calling him Papaw. I never called him Woody, but even when I was 55, I called him Papaw. But so Papaw, why don't we do something with those, you know, the money that you're bringing in on these? I said, you don't need it, you know that. And I said, well, okay, like anything, we go do it. So I said, well, why don't we form a nonprofit my brother has a law degree, and so Brian can get our 501c3, and we'll put together a board of directors and we'll figure out what we're going to do with it. So he agreed, and so I jumped right on it. This is a good opportunity. He was 89. So because we launched the foundation on his 90th birthday, about 13 years ago. And I think it was, again, a God thing. He was behind the scenes. He was working with the state of West Virginia on a West Virginia State Veterans Cemetery. And they were working on the monuments in the cemetery. And he proposed that they establish a Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. Never been. I remember him calling me and saying, "I'm going to put something in the mail to you." He always snail mailed everything. When you get it, call me. So I got it and I opened it.
7 days later,
and you're right. It's a picture of this monument, Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. And I'm thinking to myself, Pebble, this is great. I've got him on the phone. This is a cool monument. He had gotten with an architect in West Virginia and designed it. He and this architect. And I said, super cool. It's beautiful. It's got the silhouette cut out of the missing person, which all ties in, obviously. And I'm thinking to myself, somebody's already doing this, I'm sure. So I said, well, I got you on the phone. Let me Google it and let's see. So I pulled up on Google, Gold Star Families. I said, Papo, you're not going to believe this. This is an original idea. This has never been done before. I think this might be something that we should do with the foundation, because we're doing that all at the same time. That's why I think God had his hand on this the whole time. But maybe this is what we're supposed to do with this foundation and these funds. And just a couple of weeks ago, we dedicated the 149th one in the country. Well, in the country in Guam. Actually, we've got one in Guam too. But he wanted one in all 50 states before he passed, and we met that commitment for him. And now we've dedicated 149 of them across the country.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Gold Star family is someone who's lost a family member to war. And I have a question, so I'll ask it of you first, and then get what you think Woody's answer to this was. So, in your opinion, why is it so important for us to remember and support the Gold Star families? Why is that such an important thing for the foundation?
I would say, and Woody would have said, these families have given more than any of us have given for our own freedoms that we enjoy every day. I served. I don't care if you served for 30 years. If you gave your son or your daughter, you gave more. And that's how Woody felt. And that's how I feel too. These families, they've given one of their own for our freedom. They've sacrificed one of their own. So it doesn't get any bigger than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're the ones that are left with, whatever that looks like, right? Like the void for the rest of, the rest of their life. Yeah, you're exactly, like, to lose a son or a daughter, a husband, a wife. It's a big thing. And I've always, we talk about a lot of the podcasts is, I always feel awkward when people are like, thank you for your service. I always think that the families and my wife and my kids, they served well too. They served too. They dealt with, the moves, they dealt with the uncertainty, in a different, that in a different way than we did. And I have to be that it's got to be harder, because I've always said, like, when I was out doing what I was doing, I wanted to do that. So there was no, I didn't give a shit about deploying. I was like, okay, that's great. Like, you worry about taking care of kids and paying the bills and balancing the checkbook and taking care of the house. But
they've given so much. They've given so much more than I have. Yeah, certainly.
So a lot of reactions to, obviously a lot of interactions with Gold Star families. So what's when those interactions with them and building those monuments and honoring them, like, what is that? What are those interactions? Any of them jump off to you that you remember? Like, what's because I have it too, that like, and that's why it's big about, you and I were talking before about where our funds go, right? For Pours with Patriots, it's going to, I think at a point where people have kind of forgotten about, their servicemen are passing away. It's been a few years later. But yeah, like what is their reaction to, what has been the Gold Star family's reaction to what you and your foundation have been doing?
It's been very sweet, very rewarding, very gratifying for us to know that we can provide a place, maybe the first place that they've ever known, that is theirs. It's theirs. It's their monument. It's their area. It's their place where they can come together and know that their son or daughters or uncles or grandfather's name will never be forgotten. To me, that's the most special thing about the monuments is it's a single location, a single place where they can come together and they have, obviously so much in common. And as far as I know, before we started the Woody Williams Foundation, and not to, I'm not patting anybody on the back, but I feel really good about being able to provide a monument just for these families to have and to know that it's theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys should be proud. I mean, if it was the first one that's ever done, that's a pretty big deal. Like, what do you think the reason why there was such a gap in it? Like when you look back and you think like, I mean, like today you'd be like, wow, that's, you even said it, like you Google it, this has got to be done before. Like it's like, it's shocking to be like, that's a part of that we just didn't think about or honored, because even in today's, when there is, National Gold Star Day, it's not celebrated the same way it is like Veterans Day, Memorial Day. And I would have to say Memorial Day, it should be just as, Gold Star Day should be just as celebrated as,
Sure.
Veterans Day. Like you said before, and like, your grandfather said, I mean, those people have given the ultimate sacrifice. They've given, a piece of their family to protect our freedom. So,
yeah.
So what's the next monument? Is any plans yet? Or you?
Oh yeah, there are about 50. If you go to the website woodywilliams.org, there's a map, an interactive map, and you can see which monuments have been dedicated in your state, and which ones are coming up, which ones are going to be dedicated. There's a whole calendar. I think there's about 50 that are right now in the plannings, from what'll be next month, South Dakota, to, I don't even know where the next. It's hard to keep up. It really is. We've got a great team at the Woody Williams Foundation who does a phenomenal job. I led it for the first 5 years and was trying to travel with Woody at the same time. And it just got to be too much. So we brought on some staff people to help. And we've got a 24-year retired Marine, first sergeant, who's our new CEO, who's knocking it out of the park. Just trying to keep up really, with 50 in plans. It's a lot, it's a lot of work.
So where's the closest one? You were saying the closest one here isn't the
Grove City.
Okay.
Yeah. There's one in Grove City, sort of right downtown. A couple police officers from Grove City, they're buddies, and they decided to put this committee together, and they had met Woody on a flight. Like, it's a nonprofit that does flights for veterans. I can't remember the name of the nonprofit.
It's the one that takes them to
No, it was more for injured veterans.
Okay.
It was a group of volunteer pilots, like a database, and you could put in a mission, and they did a lot of missions for Woody, even though he wasn't injured. He had a tough time traveling through the airports at times. And so these private pilots would do the short travel, for him at times. And so we met this guy from Grove City who was a detective, and he and a buddy of his decided to we ought to have one for the families in Columbus and the Grove City area. So Woody was here we were here for the dedication.
So if you're interested in doing that, like I'm not not asking you, but if someone's listening or wants to do that, what's that process look like? Hey, I'm living in, Boise, Idaho. We don't have one. Like, how does that work? Do they just get a hold of the foundation and
Yep. Yeah. Contact woodywilliams.org. Someone will get back with them. This is a recipe that I think I'm the only one that uses that term, but I like it and it's appropriate. And it's a recipe, and we hand it to the committee in Boise or Philadelphia or wherever. And that recipe has been perfected over 149 times. Now we've got some pretty good ideas to help you get started, to help you fundraise, to help you put together a committee. We've got lots of resources after having done it this many times. Please call.
So if you're the one trying to put that together, is that your responsibility to do all the fundraising, or does the foundation help?
Yeah. No, basically we just guide you. We put the recipe book in your hands and we help guide you through from beginning to end. It's typically a year project on average. Now we've had some that have been, take 5 or 6 years to raise the money, and that's okay. Papa always used to say there's no time limit on getting a monument or recognizing or honoring Gold Star families. There's no time limit on that. We do it the best we can, the quickest way we can. So sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 6 years. Yeah.
So, with Woody's passing, obviously you have lose him as the person to be able to speak for the foundation. Do you guys have anybody else that's stepped into that role now that goes out? I mean, have you reached out to any other Medal of Honor recipients, or like who's the foundation work with now?
A number of them. There's not one of them that would say no. They all loved and respected Woody very, very much. And any recipient that we've asked to do anything, it's there's no question. There's no question. If the date's available, they're there. Several of them have spoke in Woody's stead. Even when he was living, the commandant of the Marine Corps spoke in Fall River, Massachusetts, because Woody was speaking at one in Florida. So we've got we do have some backups, I guess you could say. I know Jim McLuhan, who was a Vietnam Medal of Honor recipient, and Doc Ballard, Vietnam recipient. They'll both be in Louisville for our gala September 27th. It'll be the third annual Legacy of Valor Woody Williams Legacy Gala. So that's September 27th in Louisville. Tickets, tables, just call us. We'd love to have you. But matter of fact, Commandant Berger, former Commandant in the Marine Corps, David Berger, who's also on our board of directors, he's the guest speaker. And then we'll have 2 Medal of Honor recipients there as well. So it's going to be a phenomenal night. It'll be a great night. But to answer your question, yeah, they none of them say no.
Yeah,
I mean they had all the love and respect for Woody.
So when he passed away, how many monuments had been erected?
About 120 to 130, somewhere in that range. So yeah, we're still.
So we saw a lot of them
trucking. Oh yeah, I mean that really hasn't slowed down a lot. I mean, people, regardless whether he's with us or not, he's with us in spirit, and his spirit and wish was that we continue to honor and pay respects to Gold Star families, and people are still doing it across the country. I mean, the next one's in South Dakota, and I think we were only in South Dakota maybe once. So there is a monument in Sturgis. I was there for that one a couple of years ago. That was just a couple months after he passed. We dedicated Sturgis, South Dakota.
So he had to have a lot of pride in what the foundation was doing.
Oh, yeah.
You think that's one of the most powerful things he did with his life, he thought? Or
I'm sure there's no doubt in my mind that's what he felt. That was the legacy that he wanted to leave behind. That's what was important to him. It was never about him. Never about him. He wanted to recognize others, especially those who had paid the ultimate sacrifice, or the families thereof.
So I think we have a post coming up later on about the foundation. So I'll grab some stuff on the gala, and we'll post that up if you send me some more details about that. So we'd love to support that and get that out on the airwaves. So, I mean, on top of that, now you also, if that isn't enough, you and your brother decided to go into business, doing something that still ties into the military, I'd say pretty heavily. Valor coins and pens. I thought your voice message was the best when you had to explain to people that you didn't deal with currency. I was like, what? And then it hit me. So,
yeah, still people, there's still a call or two every day. Hey, can you tell me what this 1937 penny's worth? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't have a clue.
Yeah, so I called you. I'm not a list. I don't rarely leave messages, but I was just listening to it, and you're like, yeah, by the way, we don't deal in American currency coins. I was like, oh, in a currency. I was like, oh, that caught my ear, but I had to listen to the whole message. So what made you and your brother decide to start that? What was the?
It sort of. Well, no doubt, not sort of. It started totally by accident because as a nonprofit, of course, Woody had his own, as most all Medal of Honor recipients do, had his own challenge coin. And he really liked handing out challenge coins. So, and they're not cheap, they're $4 or $5 a piece every time he's handing one out. So, and at that time, we're trying to put together the foundation. We're trying to raise money. We're not trying to spend money. And, but he still had his challenge coins that he wanted to hand out. And then we had, lapel pins in the shape of the Gold Star family's memorial monument, little black lapel pin. And they were costing, a couple bucks a piece, and the coins, $5 or $6 a piece. So we were paying a third party to do that. Well, my brother, he's a businessman. I mean, he's started multiple businesses, been very successful. And he said, well, why don't we just start a challenge coin company? I'll go to China and find a factory. I'll go visit a couple factories, and I'll come back. We'll start a business in Ohio, and you can help be whatever part of it you can be, or you're able to be. And, we'll buy them directly from the factory. So that's what we started doing. And one thing led to the next, and people, heard, well, we're making Woody's coins. We can give them, he can give them to you. We can get them for a little cheaper. And now, 7 years later, that's, people are still asking, hey, can you design a challenge coin? And
for those that don't know, explain a challenge coin.
So there's a lot of different stories to the challenge coins.
That's why I want to do that.
And I think the most predominant one is probably from World War I. A pilot that was shot down apparently had challenge. He had a little money, so he had a challenge coin. I'm not even sure they called them challenge coins then. Some people say it goes back to the Roman days, that they had their own challenge coins back even then. But the predominant story, as I was saying, comes from World War I. The pilot was shot down. He had a challenge coin. It identified him when he was captured, and they spared his life. They didn't kill him. So then it became more of a bar type token, a challenge at the bar. Whoever had the highest ranking unit or highest ranking coin didn't buy the drink. Whoever had the lowest ranking coin bought the round of drinks. So that's I'm not sure how much of it's true and how much of
Yeah,
it's
because
made up.
and so the challenge coin, so like, it was funny because like I came in '94, so especially how times have changed with like production and manufacturing of things, right? So like it used to be a challenge, like if you got a challenge coin, you were getting it from like a colonel and above, like maybe a command sergeant major, if it was like a division.
Yeah.
But maybe brigade sergeant, like like it was, but it was a big deal. Like usually if you're in the military, you got a challenge coin if like you did something really well, or you just happened to be in the right place when a general came by and they shaking hands and they, hand you a coin. So, I have all of mine upstairs. It's pretty funny when you look at them. It's like, and it was like a big deal to get them. Like we had it differently though. We had it for the drinking thing. But if you challenge somebody, like if I was in a unit, if I put my unit coin on, if I had one, right? If I knew you got a coin from, whoever, and I put it on the bar and you didn't have your coin, then you bought it. So there's all these different variations that happen. But it wasn't until I went to Korea in like 99, and then like over in Korea, they make the shit super cheap too. Like, so everybody, like you had company commanders that were getting coins. And then it's just so funny to watch now to see that there's like a lot of people have challenge coins, like about like just all kinds of, just the coin to give it. And yeah, it is funny to watch, because my favorite story about it is I was, I can't remember the general's name. I'd have to go back to, but I was doing something and he was out doing that. And he like gave everybody that was there a challenge coin, like, oh God, thank you. So it had to be like a month later, just happened to be something out there again. And he starts giving coins again. And I say to him like, hey sir, I just got one of these like a month ago, and he was like, does it have 2 stars on it or does it have 1? So I got promoted. I was like, I think it has 1 on. He's like, well, this is the new one. Here you go. He was like so proud of like, it's like a huge flex, right? That's really what it is. It's like, if you give somebody a coin, it's like, it's a pretty, and it's interesting to watch how they've evolved from like being like very like super hard to get to now, like everybody has like a coin, because obviously the change in manufacturing cost and, it becoming popular to do that. So it's pretty.
Yeah. Well, basically, we agreed. Okay, we'll make them for you, and we'll make them at a cost that you probably can't get anywhere else, because we want to donate the proceeds to the Woody Williams Foundation. So last week we wrote a check to the Woody Williams Foundation for $2,500. Right. So that's sort of our business model has been. We'd be honored to make your coins. You're supporting a good cause. We're going to probably do them for you for less than anybody else and still donate proceeds to the Woody Williams Foundation.
How important was it for you to donate parts of it to the foundation?
Oh, it was everything. That was the whole purpose. Yeah. That was I mean, the original purpose was to save ourselves money from not buying them from a third party to begin with. So, it just sort of,
just $5, here's $5, but no.
It just sort of
you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, and that's always. But I think that's funny if somebody doesn't run, like who's never ran a 501c3. We always are like very paranoid about like I still hate, like I just went and bought some stuff for this fundraiser. It was like $56 or something. Like I so badly want to be like, I'll just pay for it myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because we want the money. If no one's ever been part of that, I could see how that if we were giving away $5 at a time, you're like, you're like, oh my gosh, should be going somewhere. We need to be using it for something else. So it's kind of funny to see that with.
Now he's only giving away $4 at a time instead of $5.
But the challenge coin has evolved. And then we did talk about it before. You have a bottle here. Are you ready for a pour? Or are you still?
I'm good.
Go over there.
Thank you.
We got to talk about you brought a bottle, but it's kind of funny how things always work out. I didn't get a chance to talk about what your favorite whiskey was. And then one of my Saul brothers, actually, I saw this week, he donated a bottle of the malted rye. So I would honor that. So we'll just do a quick break on. I know we've kind of blown through it, but we'll talk about. We've got a couple bottles here, and then you can talk about the tag on there. But Basil Hayden's from Jim Beam, and we've talked about Jim Beam before. Jim Beam is located in Claremont, Kentucky. Jim Beam arguably produces some of the best-selling brands of bourbon in the world since 1795. There's been 7 generations of the Beam family that have been directly involved in the whiskey production. From the distillery, the brand became known as the Jim Beam. The brand became Jim Beam in 1943 to honor James B. Beam, who rebuilt the business after Prohibition. Fred Noe and now Freddie are the current master distillers. Fred took over in 2017, and I can't remember when Freddie's been there for a little bit while now, but it's actually that makes the 7th and 8th. I think Freddie's the 8th now. The distillery and Jim Beam brand were purchased by Beam Suntory or Suntory Holdings in 2014. The Basil Hayden bourbon was created in 1992 by Booker No as part of the Jim Beam small batch collection, but its namesake was Meredith Basil Hayden Jr., who was an 18th century rye farmer and whiskey pioneer. Hayden Sr. was known for his high rye mash bill, which he used to create some of the most subtle bourbon that was typical for the time. And this innovation is the foundation for the modern Basil Hayden bourbon that you see here. Basil Hayden malted rye is Beam Suntory's latest super premium addition to its line. This one came out in 2023. Some of them they've made permanent. This one's permanent. I think the subtle smoke is permanent. I think toast is permanent, and so is the wine cast finish. But this is a pretty different mash bill from any of the stuff they have. This is actually 100% malted rye.
I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I don't think I've had this one either, to be honest with you. I've had the 2x2 rye, and I can't remember the other one, but never had this one. And what's interesting about Basil Hayden gets a lot of shit because of how low proof it is. It's 80 proof. So a lot of people kind of snub their nose on it. Josh is over there going, it's 80 proof. But great if you want to get into bourbon, give it a shot. It's super smooth. It's low proof. It's not going to like blow away your palate by any means. But and then you actually bought a bottle of the normal Basil Hayden.
That's the house bottle.
Yeah, I like that. So you want to try the rye?
Absolutely.
I wasn't prepared. I don't have my knife today.
Yeah.
This could be bad. What else? Oh, look at yes. Let's see them. That was really nice of you because you could just sit me watch me struggle over here for I would have watched you struggle.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Let's go over here. I'll get that back to you before I cut myself. All right. I don't think I've had one. That's a super shout out to Ed. Thank you, Ed, for this. You want to try it?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Josh, you want to try it? It is low proof, though.
That's so good. Oh my gosh, that's so
You're
good.
over there. See, I'm a high proof guy, so it's kind of
Yeah, I just like that. I love that.
that's actually. I mean, it's really good. I mean, as far as the rye goes, it's really nice. It's really nice.
Oh,
So we'll talk about the tag. We've got you guys don't only do challenge coins, but
yeah, it's sort of a
something
challenge coin, but not. We actually started with the 69th Fighting Irish Whiskey, making their, I call them a bottle armor, a little bit different than this. And then the guys over at J. Mattingly, 1845, there in Frankfurt, saw a Facebook post of one and said, hey, why don't you come in and talk to us about making, they were having these made by like whoever makes Ford's emblems for their cars and their trucks. And they were paying a fortune, like 4 times what they should have been. So, yeah, we threw them a quote on making these these are bottle medallions, I would call.
yeah, he's gonna put you. We're trying to do some stuff with the camera on that. That's what the cool thing about the camera is. Josh moved around, so we did a change here. So since we were talking about Jay Mattingly and some stuff.
So yeah, we started making those, and we've made, I don't know, 6 or 8 for their Vietnam veteran tribute bottle, their Iwo Jima tribute bottle, their 82nd Airborne bottle. We made these medallions for them, and yeah, they're a nice compliment to the bottle.
Yeah, and it's the boundary oak is who they are. So these are great. Like if you've been
Yeah.
to some liquor stores, I think Kentucky always has a lot of them. I think I've seen you don't see these in Ohio for some reason. I don't know if they don't distribute here. I don't think they do, but you can see this. But yeah, there's the 82nd bottle, and and I say actually our friend John is probably listening. We have he does wood, so he's probably seeing the challenge coin. He's always talking about good, but he does. We got to show you some other stuff. He does these. He does these tags for us, which I feel like I got to show you those. I mean, it's not metal, but he does some pretty crazy. And I can show you some more of them when we're done. But it's pretty amazing what he does. Yeah, and
Opa.
So we're talking about our bourbon group. He'll whatever we name the bottle, he'll design a tag.
Thanks.
I might have to get a quote from you because you might be faster than John. I hope he's listening. He's probably blowing my phone here in a second. I'm kidding around, but he does all these. He hand paints these and does all kinds, but does some really good work about what the barrel is.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's pretty cool. Like everybody,
good stuff.
We take those from the bottles and we name them, and he does all that kind of stuff. And he actually did this one it was our 82nd private barrel pick. So
nice.
What more fitting? We did not make a 101st one. I still can't believe you said you didn't have to do a 101st. We definitely did not do that.
Just cut that out. Scratch it.
Oh, that's crazy. So, let's talk. I mean, if you want to talk a bit more about your grandfather and those you've been fortunate. Probably, I don't even think you know the number of the Medal of Honor recipients that you've met in your life. What if you were to sum it up, how would you describe those men that you met? Like, what makes them different? Like, what is different about them? Is anything different about them? I mean, they're just normal people.
No, they're just ordinary guys who did extraordinary things that were in the wrong time at the right place.
Yeah.
None of them asked for that blue ribbon to be hung around their neck. It's a heavy, heavy blue ribbon for sure. I've watched a lot of them, younger and older, through the years, and it's a heavy, heavy burden. But every one that I've ever met, just so humbling, just so unassuming, just like us. I mean, no different, just regular guys who were just doing their job, and and they'll all say that I was just doing my job. I was just in the in a place at a time where courage overcame fear.
So that burden and responsibility, like, is it something that you think from talking to your grandfather and seeing other guys, that's something that as time goes on, it gets easier for them to deal with that, or to accept it or to speak about it, or like,
I think so. Oh yeah, I think so. And I've watched that with individual recipients, just the way they interact in a crowd or the way they speak to a group. I've watched them from the very beginning, from being at the White House for their ceremony to 5 years down the road, watching them speak to a group at Raytheon or whatever. And they do sort of grow into it. I think some takes longer than others. I think Dakota Meyer is a pretty cool example of that. I remember when Dakota got his medal, and Woody and I went to the White House for his medal presentation, and I know he would say himself, and he wouldn't care if I said it wasn't easy. He had a tough time wearing that medal, but he's come a million miles since then. Matter of fact, he's back in the Corps. He's a completely different person than he was than I knew him when he received the medal. He'd grown up. It's been years ago, a decade.
Right.
So yeah, I think it. I'm not sure that's the case for all of them. I mean, my grandfather's told me stories of some of the World War II guys that would they'd pawn their medal for a bottle of whiskey. You know, it's not an easy thing. And like I said before, none of them ask for it. It's just, once you're told you're going to receive it, you're going to receive it. And what you decide to do with your life and the medal after that's, you know, up to them. But I think it's heavy. It's very heavy.
So I can't remember the number for the GWAT. I think it's like 27 or something. Maybe I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. So like you around it your whole life. Do you think it's like, you know, with your father and that generation coming back in World War II, just the time of like, you know, media and knowing who these people were, do you think there's more pressure on these guys now that are receiving it? Because like, you know, if there's a, you know, ceremony here, you know, next month at the White House, it's everywhere, right? It's all this kind of stuff. So you're like thrust into the limelight. Whereas like, you know, how many people saw, you know, your grandfather getting it from Truman, right? He got it from President Truman, right? Like that photo, it wasn't, you know, like it wasn't on a reel, it wasn't on Instagram. So do you think it's a little bit added pressure now for them to kind of grow into, you know, I don't know if grow into it's the right way, but you know, to be able to process it and then like accept that responsibility and definitely and to, I mean, because I think for your grandfather and those guys, it might have been a little bit easier to kind of slip into, you know, to only bring it up when you want to, not everybody knowing. Like if you say these names, I think most people will know who like Ty Carter is. Like I think a lot of people can picture it because like they say your grandfather. Well, I don't think that picture is up as much as it is today, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, and I think another major difference is those guys from World War II, like my grandfather, had to come back home and the next day start rebuilding this country. That's not the case for the guy that receives the medal tomorrow. And I think probably the same for the Korean guys. You know, there was still that time frame where there wasn't time to really dwell in it. And of course, the media whole, you know, that's a whole different story too. But I think the guys like my grandfather felt like that's the least important of things. I've got to come back home and start rebuilding this country and build and raise my family. So that's a big difference, I think.
So why do you think it's important for these guys to continue to share their message with the public? To share these stories, their story, the story of those people that didn't make it that day.
Say that again.
Why do you think it's important for us to you know, we talked about if you got to go see these guys speak, why is it important for these Medal of Honor recipients to continue to speak, to have public speaking engagements and talk about what happened? What do you think the significance of that is?
Young people especially need to hear it, need to hear their stories, need to know what sacrifices go into keeping this country free. They need to know the stories of heroism and courage and bravery. That's how we are what we are today. They need to hear the stories.
Sure. Yeah, I remember when I met Ty Carter in DC. I took a selfie with him and I sent a picture to my boys and said, "Hey, you think you're complaining about having a bad day? You should hear about this guy's worst bad day." So yeah, I think it's important for any of them to hear. That is a good point to the young generation to hear it. And it is important. I think, like I said before, I think to hear him speak in person is completely different. Not that your grandfather's speeches weren't, you know, impactful like what he's doing, but like, I mean, you see the videos and talking about it, these productions about it, but I think hearing them speak and talking about it in person, it's a whole different thing. And to be surprised about what the message you receive is exactly what we talked about earlier. It was like, they're just the most humble, thankful people that, you know,
you would never know if they didn't have the medal around their neck, you'd never know. You walk right past them in the mall. Just never have a clue.
You ready to talk more about you now?
Sure. I don't know what's left.
So no, we I mean, you didn't blow through it, but you got emotional when we talked about it. Give you a chance to
sure.
You know, we'll you know, those lost 14 or 15 years. Let's talk about that a little bit more in the fact, and not talk about those more specific, but like if you were to have a conversation with anybody, about those, when you're talking to somebody about it, like what kind of advice would you give somebody that you wish you had gotten that advice 14 years earlier before, you hit rock bottom? Like what kind of advice would you give someone who's at rock bottom? They just don't know it. They're numbing themselves with alcohol, drugs, gambling. Like, what would you tell? What would be your message to them?
Talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. Somebody's willing to listen, especially in this day and age. As prominent as PTSD and these struggles are in our society today, somebody is willing to listen. Mm-hmm. Just reach out to somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. The first person might not be the right person, but don't quit. Just keep reaching out. Somebody's out there wanting to help you, and you don't even know it. You just haven't reached out yet. So I would, don't wait 14 years like I did, certainly, until you're near death. That's not the way to do it, for certain.
Why didn't you reach out?
I don't really know. I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I was in that position. Yeah, I really can't answer that question. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think anybody else recognized. I think had somebody said to me, "Hey," I think a lot of us coming to Louisville and not being from Louisville, I think a lot of people didn't know that I was even in the military, and I certainly didn't share it. I didn't own an 82nd Airborne hat until, 15 years ago. Certainly not when I got out of the military. I just avoided the VA. I avoided the American Legions, VFWs, and nothing to do with anything that had military written on it. I just didn't want anything to do with it. I couldn't get out quick enough after seeing what I saw. I couldn't get out quick enough.
Yeah, for me, I know it was like mine was shame based, right? Like I was afraid to admit these things that affected me, right? I was afraid to really like get close to like what I was feeling like, and obviously like in that, when I, in my peer group and all the people, nobody was talking about either. So I felt like, honestly, like there was shame. I also felt weak. I always felt like, holy shit, like, there's something wrong with me. I just didn't handle this the right way. I must be weak. I must be this. I must be that. So there's a ton of shame for me to address it. Unlike you though, I had a ton of fucking people that were like being like, hey, like you might want to go talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I refer to those as whales now, but I just blew by those whales and,
yeah.
But I think that's important. I mean, like, when you start talking about all those things, I have it now that, you're in such a close knit group of people like you did, that's the recipe for disaster too, to just deny, what happened to you, just to go away from that's another way of coping, you know what I mean? And I think today it's like you said before, it's a great thing to reach out and talk to somebody. There's so many organizations out there to talk about. The times have changed. I don't think they're where they need to be yet.
No, we still have a lot of work to do, but we've made a lot of progress too. Yeah. We still got a lot of work to do.
So those 14 years where you talk about where you were at the lowest you did, like do you look back and like what got you through that 14 years? What have you ever looked back and like, what why am I still around? Like why?
Well, apparently God had a plan for me. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I was just able enough, just smart enough to figure things out and to be functional as an addict. Yeah. And I was just able to do it that long. Not a day longer, but yeah, I was just able to figure it out, I guess, on my own without, just treading water, just barely, holding down a job, usually a pretty good job that I had more money than I needed to have. And yeah, it was just a recipe for disaster.
So did you ever think about killing yourself?
A couple times. Yeah, a couple times. Never, no attempts, never got that far, but it certainly crossed my mind maybe more than a couple times.
Yeah, me too.
To be honest about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But,
thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. And then I've had, obviously we both have had close friends that have, and I just get so pissed off. I'm like, why did you not call me? How could you not have called me, or how could I have not seen it? But then I think about myself, well, you wouldn't have seen it in me either.
Yeah.
I would have been gone. I could have been gone the next day, and you'd have never had a clue.
Yeah. I shared with you before, and I've shared before, when my classmate took his life, he wasn't the first one, but yeah, I was really, fucking pissed off at Steve. But now, now I can't, when I look about it, I'm not laughing about it, but like when you just start talking about like, what the fuck am I judging somebody for? I felt the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I was, really close to doing it, a couple times. So yeah, like I don't have anger for him anymore. I just have, I just have a bunch of love for him now, and just wish that, wish that things had worked out differently. Wish they'd, reached out. Wish they just, made that one more call. Just, the anger has gone away from me. I don't have anger for those people anymore, because I was right there with them. I wasn't reaching out either. I've been pretty vocal that, I was walking around with a lot of masks on for a long time and pretended to be something I wasn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care if I lived or died, for a good, chunk of my life. So it's an interesting thing. So I can understand now when people don't do it, but, I just wish they wouldn't. I wish they, like you said before, reach out. And then that question, like, what do you think is the reason why people aren't reaching out still?
Pride? I don't know. I mean, it's, that's a tough question. I mean, pride comes to mind. There's not really, it's easy to say there is no excuse. There's too many resources out there. There are too many people out there that are willing to help. Back to your question you asked, when you asked a minute ago, I thank God that I was smart enough to get rid of my weapons at one point in the time in my life that I was, when I was there, I got rid of every gun I had, and there 3 or 4, not an arsenal, but I was smart enough to know I'm going to get, if these are around and I'm on a coke binge and hammered, I'm much less likely for that to happen if these are gone. And so I did go for a period of time in my life I didn't have any weapons, because I just knew better.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have
That's
an
a
answer.
tough question. I think about all the time. Like, I know for me, I have it now. It's just like pride, shame, like just afraid to admit that you're not doing okay. And guess what? Nobody's doing okay.
That's right.
It's just, let's just be realistic here. Everyone's having fucking fighting their battles. So it's just like, you're not the only one. But I think, for the warrior class, I think everybody always looks at us a little bit differently, that we're supposed to be these resilient people, that nothing affects us. And, for me, that couldn't have been more wrong. These things affected me profoundly, and I had a ton of feelings that I just didn't know how to express them. So,
or how to cope with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I tried to research this because it's an interesting thing with suicide. And when you talked about the community that you've been around, the Medal of Honor recipients, and how many of them, like, I don't know if there's a statistic of how many of them actually took their life that were awarded it. I couldn't find anything on it really. And it kind of just hit something, man. I want to keep researching. I don't have time to really look at it, but like, it's not a well-known thing, right? So what do you, these guys have been through some of the most horrific things you can see, right? And they make it through. Not that it's different. Like that's not the choice that they make later on. And the only thing I can look at is like a purpose. I think these guys have a purpose to share somebody else's story, right? Not just their story. Even though it's a struggle, even though they're battling the demons like we are, they still have a purpose to, like your grandfather had a purpose to share the story of those two Marines that that passed away, and that with him, on Iwo Jima doing that. What he was awarded it for. So I wonder if that has something to do with it, is like finding that purpose. Like I've always talked, we talk a lot about here is finding a purpose. And like, what do you think your purpose is now? I mean, you sort of served a short time in the military, but I'd say that you've been serving your country in different ways for a long time. Like, what would you say your purpose is now?
The first thing that comes to mind is just keeping my grandfather's legacy alive. I mean, I literally would not have anything that I own. It's like physically, any way you put it, if it weren't for my grandfather. So that's first and foremost to me, is keeping his legacy alive, and anything I can do to inspire someone else that to keep going. That it doesn't matter. You can go all the way to the gutter. Obviously I've been there and done that, and can come back from it. So I just hope to inspire somebody else to do the same thing, to give a second thought to hope. Give a second thought to thinking about talking to God a little bit, and asking for some grace, and asking for some help, whether it's through God or somebody else. That's the starting point for me.
So if you had, you talk about the Woody Williams Foundation, like where do you hope to see it go here in the next 10 years, or as you hand it off to someone else? What are your hopes for the foundation?
Yeah, I'll rotate off the board here in a couple of years. I've been, from the beginning, and we've started rotating off now, bringing other much more competent people on than myself. But I'd love to see. There'll never not be a need to recognize and honor Gold Star families. So whether it's through, maybe we build 500 monuments for Gold Star families across the country, maybe it's only another 50, maybe it's only 200. I don't know. But the other thing we're doing is outreach events for Gold Star families. Gold Star Families Day at the ballpark. Triple league ballparks here locally, Nashville, Charlotte, Louisville, or providing scholarships like your organization. We're providing scholarships to Gold Star children, not as niche as what you're doing, which I absolutely love. Something that never crossed my mind, but it's fantastic. But I think there's other ways that our foundation can continue to keep Woody's legacy moving forward and honoring Gold Star families at the same time, whether through scholarships or outreach or whatever.
Yeah, because when I think about it too, it's like, it isn't not that it's not great or needed to have 2,000 monuments, but like what is it? What does the Gold Star family need? What does it need? We're now 3-4 years since the last war. I mean, there'll be, hopefully it never happens again, but we know that won't. But unfortunately people forget, right? And there's some of the people that are forgotten before. I mean, they're still around, but they're kind of walking around. They're the ones that are walking around, not complete. So yeah, I mean, scholarships. I wonder what else that's an interesting thing. What else you could do? I think, the big thing is, I mean, looking at how do you honor their sacrifice, right? I said the same thing too with, as much as, there is for Veterans Day and Memorial Day. I still think that just the regular, the Gold Star, then also for like, my family, my wife, the other wives, that we didn't pass away, but like there needs to be something to honor their sacrifice as well. And I mean, I hope the foundation can continue to look at those like niche things. So scholarships would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have
it's a huge need.
Yeah.
And I think I've always said, my grandfather said, he'd heard many times as well. But the Gold Star families, the thing that you hear is just heartbreaking. Their worst fear is that their loved one will be forgotten. And so I think it's important we do all we can to help help them know that that won't happen. We'll never forget. We'll always say their names.
Yeah, that is a big thing. So your grandfather, what'd you call him? Papaw. So if you think about all the times you talked to him, all the conversations he's had with him, all the times you've heard him speak, what would you consider like one of the most powerful things you've ever heard him say to you or to somebody else, to an audience, or
his testimony. His testimony is so powerful. Easter 1962, like I mentioned earlier. That to me, it's just that's everything. That just sums it all up for him, and he could tell it so well. He would talk about the preacher who was about 6'6". Of course, Woody was about 5'5", 5'6". Got denied in entering the Marine Corps the first time. They turned him down because he was too short. I mean, most people that know Woody know that story, but he would describe the preacher on that Easter Sunday morning talking about the nails being hammered into Christ's hands on the cross, and he would just punch. And it just, I mean, I get chills now, but you just knew that, and it didn't matter if it was the 10th time I heard that story or the 100th, but that testimony was just so powerful every time I heard it. So I knew every time anybody heard it, it was just really, really powerful. That's my favorite. It's one of my favorites here.
Yeah, I like I said before, I haven't heard that part, but I'll have to look it up, and hopefully it's somewhere.
It's on
but yeah, but I just the videos I heard from him it was amazing to hear him always talk about that that experience in the two Marines that were lost, and always be like, hey, I'm here, and like they're sacrificed, but these two guys didn't make it to protect me, and that's just a powerful thing. It was like, all the speeches I heard it was crazy to. Yeah, that he was able to just get a point, like it wasn't even about him. He's just kind of like, I don't know, like just everything flowing through him, right? An important message, like just a spokesman. I don't know if that's the right word I'm looking for, but just it's just.
Well, and that's where
super upset that I would have loved to have met him.
Oh, yeah, I would have loved for you too.
Yeah,
that's where it all came together on that Sunday morning, was the sacrifice of those two Marines. And then the preacher tying it all together with the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. So that's what hit him like a brick in the forehead, was he's thinking about these guys sacrificed their life for me, and Jesus Christ sacrificed his life for us. That was, I mean, it just it just all wrapped up in a bow in his head that morning. And he was never the same.
So I was asked this question. I know you're not an expert. I'm gonna start saying that because some people get a little weird about it. But with all the focus that's on the veteran suicide epidemic and the warrior class suicide epidemic, what, in your opinion, is not being done that needs to be done to help deal with that?
Well, I don't think we can. I'm certainly not an expert, but I don't think we can ever do enough. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think we can ever do enough. I don't know. I think, but I do think we're doing a pretty decent job as organizations, whether it's the VFW or the number of nonprofits that are focusing on it. I think we're doing a pretty good job, but I don't think we can ever do enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things I wish if I could, all the dreams I have, I wish I could figure out, how to solve that, how to end this, how to knock it down by 90 and eradicate it is the better way to put it. But, I'm torn about that too, because I agree with you from some aspect, but also I'm like, okay, never before has it been talked about as much. Never before have there been organizations that are trying to combat it, but yet it's still happening. So we're obviously missing something. So
what is the number? I know we talked about 22.
That's always a weird number. I spent like hours trying to figure that out. 22 a day. I don't know if it's really that number anymore. Some people say it's higher. Some people say it's lower. There's all kinds of messed up reporting that comes into it, like how they report it. But the numbers and that's honestly, that's a great point, because it is really fucked up if you try to figure out the numbers, because it's not being tracked. You know what I mean? And I get it. I understand how the number can be rough. So it's saying right now, Josh pulled it up, the average of 17 to 17.6 die each day. But it's, like I said, it's like, 24 or higher, but it's just the way they report it is it's a convoluted way of reporting it, how they report it. And then also, when, are people being honest about how their service member is passing away? But like, I agree with you. You got to keep throwing everything we can on it to make it work, to get rid of it. I always take this an opportunity. Now I say it before, is like organizations like Save a Warrior, like, dude, it's powerful. Like, and Save a Warrior is not your traditional type of suicide prevention thing that you can think about. It changed my life. It's changed so many men's lives and women's life. I think it's that thinking outside the box, and every chance I can get to speak about Save a Warrior, I always do. And thank Jake Clark for actually Dr. Jake Clark now for the vision and founding Save a Warrior. But it's totally different. But I think you got to just keep throwing whatever works to fix it. I don't have it as more as, buddy checks or ask people how they're doing. It's just not working when the numbers just don't support it. So,
no, I agree.
But I think the key is just talking about it. We got to talk about how you're really feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more we can talk about it and share it, the better it can be.
Yeah. It's interesting, because the past couple of years, whenever I get, talk about Save a Warrior, or I'm on camera, I don't hide behind how I felt before, how I feel. I used to hide how I was feeling. And like a lot of people, like you said before, things were not going my way internally, and I'm just thankful that I didn't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So
I am too.
Well, thank you. So anything else you want to talk about? Want to talk about the Steelers and drafting an Ohio State quarterback?
Say a prayer. Well, yeah, I'm just Aaron Rodgers. Just not feeling too good about it, to be honest with you. I'm a lifelong.
Josh is. I'm just watching how many of the Ohio fans jump to your side now that there's an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. I've always been a fan. I'm not going anywhere, so I'll be there regardless. It's just true. That's how true fans roll.
So anything you want to talk about the Gulf War on this, anything like that? We kind of went through that pretty quick.
No, I did catch wind today that for the first time since the Gulf War, they've actually put an ICD-10 code. The VA actually has an ICD-10 code. If you don't know what that is, you just have to look it up, because I can't really explain that. But it's how the VA diagnoses veterans and illnesses. So just like PTSD or fibromyalgia or depression or whatever, my understanding is now there will be an actual ICD-10 code for Gulf War illness, which I think is phenomenal. Yeah. Long time coming, way overdue.
That's only what.
Right. Yeah. No.
Well, only 26 years or so, no big deal, man.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then we're fighting with, my generation with the burn pit stuff, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I got. It's been great. It's been great. It's been an honor to be here. Really,
I want to
appreciate
thank you.
having me.
I mean, what people don't know behind the scenes is you're going to the knife on Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If
Brent hit me up and said he had an appointment with his cardiologist and was like, "Hey, everything's look good." Then he said, "Hey, by the way, you got a 90% blockage. I got surgery on Tuesday." And I'm like, "Oh, great." But I want to thank Jay for coming up. Another, bourbon aficionado over there. He's enjoying it, and then I think the fellow member of another
military
medic,
guy.
another medic. Yeah,
we were. Yeah, another medic.
Yeah,
military guy. Yeah, we were in the National Guard together. But yeah, it's going to be fine. God's got this. My wife's worried, but
that was an interesting story that you said that the VA said there was nothing wrong with you. It's as much as you praise the VA, I always tell everybody get a second opinion. Yeah, whether it's the VA or somebody else.
I spoke to the VA today. They weren't real happy that I got a second opinion, but then after they found out the results.
Oh, my bad. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, they kind of backed off a little bit. Yeah, I talked to the nurse on the way up here.
Hey, I'm trying to be a lot better about the VA now. Like I'm finally in the VA now. Like I think I've been kicking the stone down the road for how many years, but I restarted my claim 2 months ago. I haven't done anything with it yet. I got to keep moving. I got to get moving with it, but
do not.
But I'm trying to be positive about the VA. But yeah, like get a second opinion. Doesn't matter if it's a VA, somebody else. If you're not feeling it, trust your instincts. But I do want to thank you for coming up.
Thanks, Jay.
That's a long. I know it was a long trip coming from Louisville.
Not if you don't have to drive.
That's true. That's very true. Usually when I make that trip, for some reason, I'm the driver. So I've been getting screwed on that for too long. So, but I do want to thank you, obviously, for your service to your country. Thank you for everything you've done for your fellow Gulf War veterans, working that, what you're doing with the Woody Williams Foundation, what you continue to do for the Gold Star families, and then obviously what you're doing with Valor Coins and Pens and giving back to, and everything you're doing, your service and is greatly appreciated. And
appreciate.
I'm glad you got rid of the cocaine.
Absolutely, yeah. A little overdue, but I'm glad to.
I'll tell you a story when we get off here. It doesn't involve me doing it, but a really great family story.
It's the devil.
It was my dad. No, I'm joking. No, it was, but I'll tell it. It's all right. My sister's going to kill me, but I don't care. But I've done no drugs, only alcohol. So I used to think we'll talk about this. So I grew up in a time when, like, if you can go in the military, law enforcement, you couldn't do drugs. It was like a disqualifier. So then I also had my dad who was like, "Hey, I never did any drugs." My dad was telling me he never did any drugs. So I'm like, man, my dad didn't do drugs. I can say no too, right? Obviously, my dad made it. I got to be like my dad. Well, come to find out, that may not have 100% been true, right?
Oh
yeah. But it was when my mom, before she passed away from cancer, we were at my mother-in-law's house, and somehow the conversation came up, and I was making fun of my sister about something I knew. And then my sister is the one who said, "You know what, Mr. Goody Two Shoes, you think Dad didn't even do drugs? Dad smoked, weed and hash." I was like, oh, and I kind of it was like, oh my gosh. And all this kind of stuff. And the conversation started going into drugs and stuff. And I'll never forget my mom was like sitting there listening to this. And my sister's like, oh my gosh, I've done this kind of stuff. And so I don't know who was like, I think I just like, what have you done? And she's just like, I've done everything except for like shooting thing with a needle. I was like, oh my, I'm like, you've done cocaine? And she's like, yeah, I've done cocaine. I'm like, no. And I go, well, what's cocaine like? And she goes, a person like you should never do cocaine.
I would agree.
And that's a story. That's a true story. And I'm like, okay.
And a person like me should never
yeah. So I was always like, I always hear that my sister's reaction to that was great, but
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
a person like me should never either. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. That was such a great words of wisdom from my younger sister.
That's great.
But, no, but again, sorry to joke around, but thank you again for coming in. It means the world to be able to share your story and share your grandfather's story and spread the word about the foundation and what you guys are doing. we'd love to be a part of it if we can. Any way we can help, let us know. So and tonight's gonna be a little bit different. Usually, actually, before we get into that part, I'll give us a quote, and this is a quote from you might know this quote.
Okay.
You might know who wrote this, but this is from a gentleman named Herschel Woody Williams. He said, "The medal represents what the country has always stood for, sacrifice. The day I was born, I was handed a gem that is absolutely impossible to buy. That was my freedom. Can't pay for it. There's not enough money in the world. So this medal to me stands for sacrifice and service."
Know it well.
Yeah. So great.
Couldn't be better said.
Yeah. Great quote from your grandfather. Peepaw, what is it?
Papaw.
I'm trying to figure out my grandfather's name. It's going to be coming soon. I'm going to go Peepaw, but no. Just have an annoying grandparent name. But we'll get into the part that I don't like doing it in the podcast, but it's very important. But tonight we're not going to honor a service member. Tonight it will be the third time that we honor a friend of our friends. Tonight we're going to honor Alex Wilhelm again. We've honored him this will be the third year that we've honored Alex. So Alex Wilhelm, 30 years old. Alex took his life on March 10th, 2021. Alex was born January 31st, 1991 in Dayton, Ohio. He graduated from Bellbrook High School, where he played on the Golden Eagles football team. Alex loved fishing, kayaking, hunting, hiking, mountain biking, and spending time on his family's houseboat in Norris Lake, Tennessee. He was an avid sports fan and thoroughly enjoyed the OSU Buckeyes. Alex loved to have fun with his high school, college, work, and volleyball friends. Alex took pleasure in his job and relished helping his patients and their families. In his honor, his friends and teammates established an annual volleyball tournament and fundraiser, Spike the Stigma, Mend the Mind, to support suicide prevention and mental health education, especially among men. 100% of the proceeds raised from this event are donated to local nonprofit 501c3 organizations that are dedicated to preventing suicide, providing services to those who struggle with mental illness, and helping families and individuals who have been impacted by a loss of suicide. Alex was survived by his dad, Randy, sister Sarah, brothers Kevin and Brad, grandmother Carolyn, nieces and nephews Emily, Will, Hannah, Luke, Leyland, and Landon, and his dog Gunner. And again, if you or someone you know may be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. And it's up here right now, but their annual fundraiser will be Saturday. Pours with Patriot will be out there with a lot of great organizations here in the Columbus area. We'll have some great raffles, but if you haven't got your tickets already, I'm not sure if they even have any slots left open. But if you can't play volleyball, come out and support the event. A lot of great organizations that are focused on helping combat the suicide epidemic, not only in veterans, but also, Alex wasn't a veteran, but just to try to solve this so that, Alex's family and friends don't have to have memorial events to them. And one of the most powerful things about this going for our third year is just the amount of people that if I had anything to say to Alex, I would have shook him and said, "Hey man, look at all these people that love you." I mean, as people that come from out of state, it's a very humbling experience. So if you're in the area, come down there. We will be giving away free beer to anyone that donates. It is the Zaptic Peach, which is the big hit last year. So whatever donation you made, yeah. Look, Josh is all excited over there. I think Josh drank about 13 of them last week, last thing. But who was counting? I was, but or last year. Sorry, not last week. But yeah, come out and do it. It's a great organization. We absolutely are privileged and honored to be able to honor Alex here. We'll continue to do that every year before the fundraiser. So
good stuff.
Again, I'd like to thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Jay, thanks for bringing him in here. And we will see everyone in a couple weeks. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.